Hello, everybody. C. Ray Brower here with your perfect home. And today I have Corinne Andrews with Cross Country Mortgage, and we'll be talking to her coming up next. Let's see. There it is. And we're back. Good morning, Corinne. How are you this morning?
I'm good, thanks. I'm seeing a little sunshine out my window right now. Just a hair.
I see that it might be like trying to slip in. It's still kind of drizzly over here. So I guess we got sunshine coming our way because you're on the other side of the hill.
I think it's going to be wet all day, off and on. That's all right.
Great. So, we've had the pleasure of working together a couple of times, and I just want everybody to know what a pleasure it is to work with you because you are on top of things all the time.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And so, exactly how did you end up in the mortgage industry? Let's find out a little bit about you.
Gosh. Well, first of all, I spent 20, 21, 22 years in the banking business, and I did all kinds of jobs on the deposit side. I was branch manager. I worked on support groups. I had an audit group, and I loved the company that I worked for. And they were bought out by another company, and things just changed. And it wasn't fun anymore. And somebody I knew in the lending business had opened a new shop in Pleasanton at the time and said, "You should try this." And I'm like, "Oh my God, are you kidding? No, I don't think so." He said, "No, it'll be great." And that was 22 years ago. And so here I am still in
2022, 42. Yeah. What, you started when you were like 8?
Yeah. Yeah, about that. I've been working my whole life, I'll tell you. But yeah, and so in 22 years, I have seen, I can't even begin to count the changes in lending, the rules, how things work, lots of different markets, the run up to the mortgage meltdown in 2008. Everybody working from home in COVID, all of after 2008, we had enormous changes to, licensing, and, we all had to have these federal background checks and fingerprinted, and and we have to have continuing education each year now. So it's fairly, it's a fair amount of work to keep up with all that. But, I'm a few miles from home. I can work from home. I work from the office. I work with a great group of people, and I'm still here going at it.
There you go.
Yeah, I love it.
So families?
I live here in Livermore. I've been married, oh my God, let's see, 41 years.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And same man, I should add that. And my daughter, who is 34, got engaged last year. And so she's getting married in July. And we just adore the son-in-law to be. So, I'm busy doing a few things for that. Not too much. I don't have to do too much. But we're really excited about that. So
very cool.
Yeah, lots of good stuff.
Our youngest got engaged last year. Her fiance took her to Paris too.
Oh.
So she got asked in front of the Eiffel Tower, and
wow,
they're getting married the 1st of June. So know exactly where you're at with
all that. Yeah. So it's exciting, and I'm so thankful we like the son-in-law to be. That would be tricky, huh?
That is always a good thing. Right on. Yeah. We're headed into our 31st year ourselves.
Oh.
So I'm blessed myself.
Yeah,
Blessed
absolutely.
myself. So yeah, great,
Yeah.
great. So you've been in Livermore all your life?
No, not far though. I grew up in Castro Valley, which is about 20 miles west of here.
Right.
And so for your listeners today, because I always amaze people with this, there were 7 children in my family, 5 children, and then a set of twins on the end. So I'm a twin. But we don't look alike. Everybody thought one of us had been held back in school, in those days, but we're fraternal twins. But I want them all to know that we grew up in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, 7 kids.
Wow.
People just are astounded today when I say that. They just can't
Yeah.
believe. But you make it work.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely was a different time back then. It was definitely a different time back then,
yeah.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
it's just kind of funny. But yeah, so just, the East Bay, I've been in the East Bay my whole life, and my twin sister is still in the area, but all of my other brothers and sisters are in various places from here to Nevada City to Montana to South Dakota. So all over the place now.
Right on.
Yeah.
So twins on the end, that was my mom's, she had twin brothers on the end. Is there a big gap between you and the next?
Yes, in fact, my oldest brother is 19 years older than me. So he's actually old enough to be my father, and my parents were old enough to be my grandparents. They're all squished in, and then there was 5 years between the last one and the set of twins.
Okay. It was a little longer between my mom and my uncles. She was 11, I believe. So
Yeah.
she got to change diapers and
Yeah.
do all the stuff that
Yeah.
a babysitter would do, a built-in babysitter.
Yeah. You have all those kids. You can just hand off a child to one of them and say, all right, I got to do something, whatever you got to do at that moment. Lots of hands to help. Yeah.
Yep. And I had forgot you were a twin, but I remember because that's one of the things you always ask, and everybody, so how you doing? And I said, if I knew better, I'd have to be twins. And I remember you saying that. Now I'm a twin.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, in fact, I'm so old that in those days, they didn't know in advance that you were having twins. So they did not know until the birthday came, so to say. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They
were pretty darn surprised.
So, I go by C. Ray, as it says there. And that's because my first name is Carrie, and I was born in Idaho, and Dad is Val Ray, and I'm Carrie Ray, and he started going by Ray his junior year in high school because, as you said, they didn't know twins, they didn't know male, female, whatever back then. And so Dad is the second, and my grandma wanted a baby girl so bad. And the old wives' tale, carry it high, it's a boy, carry it low, it's a girl, or whatever that wives' tale is, right? Yeah. Well, she carried Dad exactly opposite of my Uncle D. And so they didn't even pick a boy's name. He was going to be Valerie.
Oh.
And when he came out equipped, they went ahead and changed it to Val Ray. And he went by Val all the way to his junior year in high school when a girl moved into town named Val Ray, all one word, Valray. And of course, he started getting poked about having a girl's name. And so he just went to Ray. We moved to California when I was in the summer before 7th grade. And I had never met another Carrie in my life. The only Carrie I knew was the old actor, Cary Grant. And he spells his, C-A-R-Y, and I am C-A-R-E-Y. And of course, I started getting teased that I had a girl's name, and I went to 7th grade, and I ended up in girls PE and home economics. Which in 1968, as you probably remember, back then, it was glorified sex education.
Yeah.
But they kept boys and girls apart. Now they both put them together, and it doesn't matter because nobody knows whether they're a boy or a girl anymore.
Yeah. You can't tell from names, no.
But that's when I started going by Ray. But when I went home to tell mom and dad that I was going to be Ray, not Carrie anymore, that didn't work at home. So even though my middle name is really Ray, I was always called Raymond.
Ah, that's
So,
funny.
yep, the joys of our childhood, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we survived it.
Somehow, with no seat belts and drinking out of the hose and
Oh my God. Yeah.
riding in the back of pickups. And
Yeah. No,
uh,
no, I know it's funny.
yeah. So, what do you expect in 2023 for our industry?
Well, from what I've seen so far, I think the big question is always, when are interest rates going down? When are interest rates going down? Always.
Right.
Now, here's the world I come from. When I started in 2000 doing this, interest rates on a 30-year fixed loan were at about 7.5%.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a pretty good rate because when I was still in banking, interest rates for a home loan were 15 and 16% back in, the 80s and 90s. There was a
Right.
terrible economic time then. Anyway, so, that's always a big question. And of course, homes cost more today. I get that from 2000. But anyway, I think that's always the big question. My opinion on the interest rates is that they're likely not moving down until we see a fairly good drop in inflation. And if I knew exactly when that was going to be, I wouldn't have to work anymore because I could plan all kinds of things and, it would work out to my advantage. But we've seen a little lessening of inflation lately, just a little bit. So it's hard to say. We do think, interest rates will be coming down. They'll come down some from where we're at. But the days of 2.95 rates, 2.75, I really think that was an oddity of COVID and what was going on at that time. But I think, we still have an opportunity for rates to go down a little bit, but just not until we see inflation under control.
Right.
And I think that could still be, another year away. Some people are quoting, the end of the second quarter. I think that's probably not likely unless some other crazy thing happens. I don't know. But we just work with what we have every day because I would love to say that I have control over it, but I do not. So we have to deal with what we have. Yeah.
I can appreciate that. I get asked the same kind of questions all the time by people when I own the transmission shop. Same thing, somebody would come in, their car's not working right. Check it out. It needs a transmission. Well, how long have I got? How long have I got? Well, the best time's now. The next best time's the next time you get it towed in.
Yeah.
But how long is that? I mean,
Yeah.
What do you think? And I said, well, I used to be able to tell you that.
Yeah.
But I can't do that anymore. Well, why can't you? Well, because I used to have this crystal ball, and the guys in the shop, they were playing catch with it, and they dropped it and broke it. So I can't tell you anymore.
Yeah. And one thing I will say about home prices is no matter when people bought into the market, if you hold the property long enough, it is going to go up in value.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have a firm belief in that. You just got to hold it long enough. You got to be patient. We've had weird economic times where somebody bought a house for relatively inexpensive, sold it, another couple of years for a big profit. Again, those are kind of the little oddball things, but it's that chart. If you look at it year after year after year after year, it just, continues to creep up. And that's one of the things that allows people who are just, everyday folks, not owning Apple Corporation or Microsoft, that, if you can get into a house and you hold it long enough, you're going to build some wealth for yourself. And I'm one of those people as well. You come from a house of 7 kids, there's no money being handed out. I assure you. And so, you start in something that you can afford and you sell it and it gets a little better. And that's my feeling on that. So.
and it is a fact. It doesn't matter what period of time you look at in the last 100 years. Any 10 to 15-year period, you bought 10 years, 15 years later, you have made money.
Yeah.
There are those anomalies where there was a drop. And of course, I always tell everybody, well, the prices are back up. It's going to crash again. You're living in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
The closest one, yes, is right there, there. And yes, housing prices dropped incredibly, but it wasn't because the house prices were high. It was because of the standards that we had in the industry that allowed people to buy things that they truly couldn't afford in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But they were being told, don't worry. Look how much it went up just last year. You'll never have to make that payment.
Yeah.
I mean, me and my wife, she really enjoys going and looking at model homes, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And back before the bubble burst, they were asking $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 non-refundable deposit for you to get into a home 3, 4, or 5 phases away, and they wouldn't tell you what you're going to pay for it. Well, today it's this, but last month when we opened this phase, they were $10,000 cheaper. So $10,000 every 3, 4, 5, 6 months that they're going up. By the time you're there, the prices increased exactly what they won't give you back. And you have no choice but to buy, right?
They're really, really good at numbers. Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of the big crash, our government allowed people to walk away.
Yeah.
Which created more financial problems.
Yep.
Even though nobody could get the concept that if they just held on to it, they paid $300,000 for it. It's worth $150,000 now. All they got to do is wait 6 years, and it's worth $350,000. And you've paid down on the note and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
I have a very close person to me that was in the industry during that time and came to me and said, hey, all the guys I work with say that I should buy a home. I said, you should. Yes, you should buy a home. Just do me one favor. Do not sell yourself the loan that you're selling everybody else. All you got to do is buy a home at a payment you can afford on a fixed interest rate and move forward. Realize that I'm not in the industry. I was at that time still in the transmission repair industry. I'm not in the industry, but I can see the problems that are being created by being able to say, I want to buy $1 million home, but I only want to pay $1,300 a month.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And back then, my stated income is $2 million because I have an Amway business, right? And then write the loans up.
Yeah.
So it's sad what happened, but I'm glad to see that it happened because hopefully it'll be a really long time before people put the blinders on and say that we can do it again.
Yeah. I don't think I'll probably in my career see another one of those scenarios, but who
knows what they're going to turn around and do. I don't think in our careers at our age that we are ever going to see anything like that, but it could be up there somewhere, right?
And I know it's hard on the buyers or someone refinancing because the amount of paper that we ask for, the amount of information that we have to verify. And I know people have a hard time with that sometimes because, they maybe they didn't live through the 2008 or didn't experience that personally. And so we check everything over and over and recheck it and double check it and look it up on the internet. And it's like being investigated. I mean, we have to make sure that everything is absolutely correct. Especially if someone's working in the high tech world and they have stock options and that's part of their pay. Uh, we're guessing, we're assuming what that stock is going to be worth, and we have certain calculations that we have to do for that. And sometimes people can't use that particular money. They haven't been receiving it long enough. Maybe their stock was really bad in the last 3 years, and you look at kind of the worst case scenario over a 3-year period for them. So anyway, it's really looked at very closely, and I don't even know how many pages are in a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac guideline, but I know it's in the thousands of pages. Just like right now, we're seeing pullback from the lenders on condominiums because of that terrible accident in Florida. And so they're really looking closely at how old is the building, what kind of inspections have they had, what's going on with that HOA, do they have enough money if there's a problem? They're really looking at that a lot more closely these days. And that's we're seeing some pullback on some of the lending for that. Still some other options, but still, that's what used to be is no longer the case. It's changed just slightly because of problems, and so it's a never ending changing. It's very fluid. Things change very rapidly. Policy updates on a daily basis. What you did yesterday, you may not be able to do today, and that's the nature of the beast. And it's constantly changing.
Yep. And no matter how bad it feels, change is always good.
We're getting all this rain. That river that was somewhere now changes and goes another direction because of the rain. So it's inevitable.
Yeah. Change is inevitable. Got to learn to go to higher ground when the time comes, right? I mean, like you said, the crazy amount of rain that we're getting right now. What do they call atmospheric rivers? Quit calling it the Pineapple Express. Now it's an atmospheric river. My wife the other day, when they were saying that on the news, says, I never heard of that before. I said, that's because they used to call it the Pineapple Express.
I remember that.
They got to change things up every once in a while.
Another thing that's happening this year, and if we have a couple more minutes, if you'd like to hear about it, is because people are starting to use this, and this is actually an old procedure. Old is new. It didn't work in certain markets, but in the market that we're in today. So if you look at January of this year compared to January a year ago, a year ago in 2022 in January, the buyers were just getting beat up. 30 offers on a house, people paying $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, whatever it was, over the asking price. And that left a lot of people on the sidelines. It was definitely a seller's market. If you didn't sell your house in the first 6 months, you kind of missed that boat. So now it's really, the coin, it has flipped. And now the buyers have a lot more to say in the transaction. And that makes a much nicer transaction, I think, for people, because the seller can have, some concessions, the buyer can have some concessions, and everybody feels better about that. I think it makes for a happier transaction. So one of the things, and again, this is an old procedure, but it has come back into vogue. They're called buy downs. And right now that's very popular. And we refer to these as a 3-2-1 buy down, a 2-1 buy down, or a 1-1 buy down. And the simple explanation of that is, if let's say the rate today is 6.5%, just throw that number out there. Doesn't matter what it is, but 6.5. The first year, your payment is equal to or required. The payment that's required by the buyer is at 3.5%. The second year, it's 2% less, so that's 4.5%. The third year, it's 1% less, so that's 5.5%. Now, the difference in those payments over that 3-year period is paid for by the seller, and that's called a seller concession. And that money, so the seller pays that. when you get your bill that first year, you're not paying at 6.5, your payment's based on 3.5. Now you have to qualify on the 6.5. All right. But so all that money that the seller gave you to make the difference in the payments sits in an escrow account at the bank where you make your payment to. That's where it sits. And every month they take out the difference between the 6.5 and the 3.5 and the 6.5 and the 5.5, etc. Now, we suspect that in the next 3 years, if somebody starts their loan at 6.5, they're probably at some point in the next few years would have an opportunity to refinance, maybe at 4.75 or 4.5. Or we don't know what interest rates are going to be, but we expect them to have an opportunity sometime in the next 3 years. So if you can get a credit from the seller, and again, this helps you with, the first time you get into a house and now you got to make a house payment and maybe you had a really low rent situation or you've just gone into a new job, you're moving to a new area. It gives you an opportunity to not jump to that huge payment that you weren't accustomed to yet. You can afford it, but you haven't had to make it yet. Right. So a buy down also allows you to have a little bit lower payment. Then it goes up 1 year and it goes up the third year. And then it moves back to that 6.5 if interest rates have never changed and you didn't have a time to refinance. But anyway, The thing about that is, let's say you got a chance to refinance after 1.5 years. What happens to all that money that the seller paid that you didn't get to use up? That money actually comes back to the borrower and is applied to the principal balance of the loan. So you still get the benefit of someone giving you that concession up front. That is the exact opposite of what happens when you pay points to have your rate permanently reduced.
Lower.
So if it's 6.5, you paid 10 grand, 15 grand, and you're now at 5.5, let's just say. So now we're at 5.5. A year later, it's like, ooh, look, the rates are at 4.5. Now you want to refinance. All that money you spent, that $15,000 or $12,000 or $20,000 or whatever it cost you, the bank ends up with that money. The bank keeps that money. You do not receive the benefit of it because it takes you a good 5 years plus to break even when someone pays points for a permanent buy down.
Right.
So people just want to look at that very closely because those options are available. The buy downs have become back in vogue. These were very popular in the early 2000s.
Right.
They're all legal. You can use them conforming loans, VA, and FHA. They all allow for that. So it can be a very good deal. And again, the seller can pay it. And sometimes the seller would rather pay that than reduce the price of their home.
Sure.
So
it's
a win-win.
It's a win-win because that is closing costs for the seller and it's a tax deduction.
There we go.
Which many people don't understand that. That it is actually a tax deduction. Well, you get the full $15,000. No, it's a tax deduction. It's written off your taxes. So depending upon your tax rate determines how much you actually get of that money. But you do get that money, part of it. Right. So
yeah. So that's probably one of the most popular things that are out there right now, and people are seriously looking at those. I was at an open house on Sunday, and it was pretty busy. I was surprised to see how busy it was. And that was a big conversation I had with a lot of the agents coming through there.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the benefit of staying on top of things. Because I've used that myself a few times this end of this year, 2022, right? Beginning now. So definitely what I'm teaching my mentees also is the benefits and why it's a benefit and how to actually talk to both the buyers and the sellers about how the benefit really works for both sides.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand the whole picture and think that the seller's just giving away money. Well, no, it's really not giving it away. It is helping get the house sold. And yes, it is still a benefit to you to give that to the buyer because, again, it's a tax deduction. It's part of
Yep.
your closing costs. So,
Yeah. And it's a win-win. Everybody, the seller was able to do something, the buyer was able to get something. People are much happier when it's not all one-sided like it was a year ago.
right.
The seller got everything. So
Right.
that's not fun.
No, it's not. Although there was ways to work through that too.
Yeah, well, there was, sure.
There's always ways to make things happen if you know how to talk and know the plan. Know the plan.
Right.
I mean, that's it, because
Yeah.
the plan's constantly changing, and you have to be ready to
Yep.
go whichever way the plan is going and adjust. And
Right.
it can always be a win-win
Mhm.
if you understand the rules. The rules
Yeah.
are there to help you, not to hinder you. Well, great, Corinne. It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to next week. We ended up back to back, which is great.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. So next week, we'll find some more things to talk about. Everybody, if you need any help, make sure to talk with Corinne Andrews at Cross Country Mortgage. And you all go out and be the sunshine in somebody's rainy day. And if you need anything, her information's been scrolling across the bottom. Mine's there front and center. Give me a call, send me an email, text message, direct message. I am there to help. And everybody remember to see Ray to find your perfect home. We'll see you all real soon. Thanks.
Thank you.